Hello everyone, Jeff with the Green Review. The past couple of weeks I've done a lot of dormant pruning on shade trees and a few ornamental trees. We normally would want to do pruning on flowering trees and flowering shrubs right after they bloom, but occasionally during the winter when there are no leaves on a tree we can see there's crossing branches or other things that we might want to take care of. We'll do that in the dormant season as well. And something like this serviceberry was freshly planted this year, so it hasn't had a time where we've been able to do any pruning, so we're going to be doing that pruning now. And what we look for in the dormant pruning are crossover branches that are growing through the middle that are growing in the wrong direction. A lot of times those branches will end up rubbing on trunks and branches, and we don't want that to happen because there'll be insect and disease problems as those rub together and become raw. We look for dead branches. This also has a couple of those. We look for suckers that are coming up from the root system that may or may not be something we want to keep. We look for water sprouts, which are vertical growing branches off the side of a trunk or off of a horizontal growing branch, and we try to determine whether we need to keep that or remove those. We look for branches that have narrow branch angles where they're growing too close together instead of being widespread. So we look for quite a few things on these dormant prunings, and I'm going to show you in the rest of this video a lot of those different individual aspects as we go. Always remove branches that cross through the middle of a plant or lay on top of other branches. They will only cause more and more trouble as they get larger in diameter. Another thing we look for are dead branches. In this case, an evergreen without needles is probably got a dead branch. And a lot of the trees will do this in the interior of the tree where there's shade. The smaller little branches will die off, and sometimes they'll just naturally fall off. Other times they're larger and it looks bad when you have these dead branches, so we want to prune them off. Another thing we look for are suckers and water sprouts. Suckers come up from the ground, from the root system, and may or may not be something we want to keep. It could be something where it's coming out far enough away from the trunk that we want to keep it as a new branch or a new trunk for a multiple trunk tree. But in general, we're not going to keep the suckers growing up from the root system. Another thing we look for are narrow branch angles. This small branch coming off the main branch is at too close together, too small of an angle. It really needs to be wider. If it were wider, then it would be stronger. One of the problems with a narrow branch angle, a lot of times the smaller branches then lay on top of the main branch and cause problems where the bark grows together. As this branch gets to be much bigger and this branch gets to be much bigger, these two will grow together, causing us a lot of trouble. So we find that on a lot of trees, and we have to do a lot of pruning for that. Another problem is that the branches now grow close together, and so they oftentimes will lean against or rub on another branch. So this branch is rubbing together on this one, and eventually these two will end up with wounds that could invite insect or disease problems. So we want to take off these smaller branches that have these narrow branch angles. And that's all it takes to fix this problem. Try to never let a branch grow vertically next to the trunk. As they both increase in diameter, the bark between them will eventually start decaying, causing a hollow area in between the two trunks. Try to be careful to not damage the trunk when removing the branch. A lot of times water sprouts are so weakly attached and come off the bark tissue instead of coming off the branch tissue, they'd be growing in the normal route of a branch, that they just snap off. So you can just pull them apart and they would just come right off. And a lot of times this will actually remove enough of the tissue in the branch that they won't re-sprout. Pruning them off may cut above that spot and allow them to re-branch from that same spot, and causing you to have to do more and more and more. But if they're older and bigger, you might have to cut them. But the younger ones like these that are small can just break off. And so it's a quick, easy method whenever you see them, just to go ahead and pull them apart. But you get a big one like this that's, you know, strongly attached, go ahead and prune it. And of course I didn't bring my pruners, and that's why we like to just yank them and pull them off. But if it doesn't come off immediately, if it's kind of strongly attached, save it, come back later and use your pruner and cut it off. This has been a Green Review. Thanks for watching.